Welcome to the first episode of the monthly We the People, a podcast brought to you by Zimbabwe Constitutional Movement. This podcast is dedicated to bridging knowledge gaps on the Constitution of Zimbabwe and amplifying the voices of the people. In this first edition, we highlight a disturbing trend emerging in Zimbabwean politics. That is, the attempts to extend the president's tenure beyond 2028. This effort raises alarm bells about the erosion of constitutionalism and democracy in our country. This is not just a political maneuver. It's a direct attack on the principles enshrined in our constitution, and as Zimbabweans, we all have a duty to pay attention and act. First, it's key to note that our constitution, adopted in 2013, represents the aspirations of millions of Zimbabweans for accountable governance and a commitment to the rule of law, and the recent move risks undermining these hard-won principles. Let's start with what the Constitution says. Section 91(2) of the Zimbabwe Constitution stipulates that a person is disqualified for election as president if he or she has already held office as president for 2 terms, whether continuous or not. This provision ensures that no single leader consolidates power indefinitely, and it safeguards Zimbabwe from the dangers of entrenched autocracy. Despite these clear constitutional safeguards, current efforts within government, the ruling party, and even the parliament indicate efforts to amend the constitution to allow the incumbent president to serve beyond his 2nd term. Please note, this is not just a technical alteration of law, it's an attack on the very foundation of constitutionalism. We must ask, what are the implications of such a move? What message does it send to citizens, neighboring countries, and the global community about Zimbabwe's commitment to democracy? Extending the presidency would have dire consequences for Zimbabwe's democracy. Let's break this down. Erosion of the rule of law. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. If those in power can amend it to serve their personal interests, what's to stop further amendments that strip away other rights and freedoms? Zimbabwe's own history provides cautionary tales. In 2013, Zimbabweans voted out a constitution that did not have presidential term limits. And all this stemming from a history, not just in Zimbabwe, but in Africa and beyond, where many leaders abused the lack of term limits to entrench authoritarianism. We cannot be going back to where we came from as a country. Democratic backsliding, allowing an incumbent to overstay their mandate, undermines the principles of free and fair elections. It discourages meaningful political competition and concentrates power in the hands of a few. Loss of public trust. Zimbabweans voted for the current constitution in a 2013 referendum, affirming their desire for a democratic system of governance. Overturning these provisions would shatter public confidence in democratic processes. We speak with young women on what they think of this move.
Then if one starts to extend term of power, it doesn't make sense to us because we know that we're growing up. We also want to be young leaders as well. So if one president gets like 38 years or 36 years into power, it doesn't make sense because we also want to see the changes in the country.
It doesn't make sense for them to extend the term limits for the president because we decided that the whole country voted for the change in the constitution where we are not having a long-term limits and you work with terms. Now we want to redo it because somebody does not have a succession plan, because a political party does not have a succession plan. It doesn't make sense. Worse off, it just makes me angry because you want somebody to be continuously benefiting. Somebody is continuously benefiting and not everyone else. And now it's terrible because what you're now just showing that the constitution does not work. It has no. We're now moving back to dictatorship. That's what it's now going back to. So what's the point of the constitution when you just want to be like Eswatini then, just having a king?
As a young woman, I feel like the amendment of the constitution is wrong, since the constitution is at the top of all laws, and it must be difficult to amend because it's like the Bible where we live by. So if someone starts to amend one law, which means that everything else can be amended also. So as a young woman, I feel like they're going to change many things on the women's right once they start this. So I think let's respect the constitution and leave as it is, because the people said what they wanted before and it still stands up to now.
It means they're now violating the needs of the people. They are now doing it for their own benefit, which is not benefiting the people in Zimbabwe, which is very wrong.
We encourage you to share your stories and insights. Reach out to us via email or WhatsApp on +263 7732 45709 or email media@zimrights.org.zw.